1503 hours Persian Gulf, latitude 26 degrees 44 minutes north, longitude 54 degrees 22 minutes east. The central Persian Gulf at mid-afternoon in late October has shed some of the brutal heat of summer. The air temperature is 38 degrees Celsius rather than 48. The humidity has dropped to a level that the human body can process without shutting down. And the visibility has opened up to near unlimited in every direction as the high humidity haze that dominates the summer months has thinned to a clean, transparent atmosphere that allows the naked eye to resolve contacts at 8 to 10 nautical miles and radar to see clearly to every horizon. The sea surface is a flat cobalt blue. The wind under 5 knots, the swells under 1 foot. In operational terms, conditions are perfect. Every sensor works at maximum range. Every weapon flies its designed trajectory without atmospheric distortion. Every pilot can see the horizon clearly. In conditions like these, the outcome of any engagement is determined entirely by the quality of the hardware and the training of the crews, and nothing else. 240 nautical miles to the northwest, in the hardened underground command facility near Bandar Abbas that houses the IRGC Aerospace Force's Ballistic Missile Operations Center, someone has made a decision that they believe conditions are also perfect for. The transit group in the IRGC's targeting picture consists of 3 vessels, USS Gonzalez DDG-66, an Arleigh Burke-class Flight 1 guided missile destroyer serving as the formation's lead and primary air defense asset, USNS Cesar Chavez TAKE-14, a Lewis and Clark-class dry cargo and ammunition ship carrying replacement ordnance, spare parts, and general stores for Carrier Strike Group 9 currently operating in the Gulf of Oman, and USS Cowpens CG-63, a Ticonderoga-class guided missile cruiser providing the formation's senior Aegis capability with her 122-cell VLS and Baseline 9 combat system. The group is transiting the central Persian Gulf at 16 knots on a northeast to southwest track bound for the Strait of Hormuz and the replenishment rendezvous with the Carrier Strike Group beyond. They are 87 nautical miles south of the Iranian coastline. They are in international waters. They have been tracked by Iranian coastal radar since they entered the Gulf's eastern approaches 7 hours ago. The USNS Cesar Chavez is the actual target. The IRGC's operational planners understand the U.S. Navy's logistics architecture well enough to recognize a combat logistics force vessel when they see one. And they understand that a Lewis and Clark-class ship carrying replacement ordnance for an active Carrier Strike Group represents a high-value target whose neutralization would impose meaningful operational consequences on the strike group's sustained combat effectiveness. Sinking an ammunition ship does not sink a carrier, but it forces the carrier to curtail flight operations while alternative logistics arrangements are made. It creates a temporary gap in the strike group's weapons magazine, and it generates the kind of visible operational disruption that serves Tehran's broader information campaign about the costs of American military presence in the Gulf. The weapon selected for this mission is the Zolfaghar, Iran's domestically developed solid-fuel ballistic missile, named for the legendary sword of the Imam Ali, consistent with the IRGC's practice of naming its most significant weapon systems after symbols of Shia Islamic heritage. The Zolfaghar entered service with the IRGC Aerospace Force in 2016 and was first publicly demonstrated in the same year. It is a road-mobile, solid-fuel, short-range ballistic missile with a claimed range of 700 kilometers, carrying a 450-kilogram warhead and using a GPS/INS midcourse guidance system with a claimed circular error probable of 30 meters against fixed targets. Against moving ship targets, the anti-ship ballistic missile role that Iran has been developing and testing, the Zolfaghar carries a modified terminal seeker derived from the system used on Iran's Khalij Fars anti-ship ballistic missile, a weapon that Iran claims successfully struck a decommissioned Iranian frigate during a 2011 exercise, and that U.S. naval analysts have been studying with serious attention ever since. The anti-ship ballistic missile threat is not theoretical. It is real, it is increasing, and it is specifically what the SM-6 Block 1 was developed to address. 4 Zolfaghar missiles, 2 mobile transporter erector launcher vehicles positioned at a classified inland site in the Hormozgan Province, each carrying 2 missiles in their ready-to-fire configuration. The launch site is 218 nautical miles from the transit group's current position, inside the Zolfaghar's maximum range by a comfortable margin, giving the weapon's terminal seeker adequate acquisition time against the ship formation's radar cross-section. The fire control solution has been computed using the formation's last AIS position, corrected by a Shahed 171 reconnaissance drone that has been loitering at 28,000 feet 60 miles south of the formation for the past 90 minutes, providing continuous optical and radar update to the ground station. The drone's presence has been noted by USS Cowpens AN/SLQ-32 Electronic Warfare Suite, logged as a surveillance contact and reported to the E-2D Advanced Hawkeye orbiting 90 nautical miles south. But a reconnaissance drone in international airspace, however unwelcome, is not by itself an act of aggression that authorizes engagement under the applicable rules of engagement. At 15:03 hours and 31 seconds, the AN/TPY-2 radar at the joint USGCC air defense installation in the UAE's Al Dhafra sector detects the first Zolfaghar launch event. The boost phase signature is unmistakable. A solid-fuel ballistic missile motor generates a thermal signature visible to space-based infrared systems and to ground-based radars designed for exactly this detection task within seconds of ignition. 3 more launches follow in rapid sequence: 15:03 hours and 44 seconds, 15:03 hours and 51 seconds, and 15:04 hours and 3 seconds. 4 Zolfaghar missiles airborne within 32 seconds. The AN/TPY-2 has all 4 contacts in track before the last one has cleared its launch rail, and the track data is flowing through the integrated air and missile defense network to USS Cowpens, USS Gonzalez, and the E-2D Hawkeye before the first missile has completed its initial boost phase. In USS Cowpens' Combat Information Center, the TAO receives the ballistic missile launch alert at 15:03 hours and 47 seconds, 16 seconds after the first launch. The Aegis Baseline 9 combat system has already begun its threat track correlation from the AN/TPY-2 data, computing trajectory solutions for all 4 incoming missiles using the external queuing data that the ground-based radar is providing through the network. The TAO calls General Quarters at 15:03 hours and 49 seconds, 2 seconds after receiving the alert. The ship's company is at full combat readiness by 15:05 hours and 12 seconds, 1 minute and 23 seconds after the first launch was detected. The SM-6 Block 1 is the intercept weapon for this engagement. The standard missile 6 Block 1's dual role capability, it can function as both an air defense interceptor against aircraft and cruise missiles, and as an anti-ballistic missile interceptor against short-range ballistic missiles in the terminal phase, was specifically designed to give Aegis ships an organic terminal defense capability against exactly the kind of anti-ship ballistic missile threat the Zolfaghar represents. The SM-6 does not have the exo-atmospheric reach of the SM-3. It engages ballistic missiles in their terminal descent phase within the atmosphere rather than above it. But for a Zolfaghar on a 218 nautical mile trajectory, the terminal phase descent brings the weapon into the SM-6's engagement envelope with geometry that the Aegis fire control system can exploit effectively. The SM-6 Block 1's active radar seeker, derived from the AIM-120 AMRAAM and capable of autonomous terminal homing without continuous illumination from the launching ship, EA-18G gives it the engagement flexibility needed against a maneuvering re-entry vehicle, because the Zolfaghar's terminal seeker does maneuver. This is not a purely ballistic weapon in its terminal phase. The anti-ship variant's terminal seeker activates at approximately 40 kilometers from the target and begins adjusting the re-entry vehicle's trajectory to home on the radar cross-section of the largest ship in the formation. The adjustments are limited. Aerodynamic maneuvering in the hypersonic terminal phase is constrained by the physical limits of the airframe and the control surfaces. But they are real. They change the predicted impact point from the pre-launch ballistic solution, and they require the SM-6's guidance system to track a maneuvering target rather than a fixed ballistic arc. This is the engagement problem the SM-6 Block 1 was built to solve. USS Cowpens fires two SM-6 Block 1 missiles at 15:04 hours and 58 seconds, 1 minute and 11 seconds after the first launch detection. The timing reflects the engagement timeline for a Zolfaghar on a depressed trajectory from 218 nautical miles. The weapon's total flight time is approximately 7 minutes and 40 seconds, and the SM-6 engagement must be timed to place the interceptors in the optimal intercept basket during the terminal descent phase. 1 minute and 11 seconds of reaction time is not rushed. It is precise. The Aegis system computed the intercept solution from the AN/TPY2 track data before the SM-6 launchers were authorized to fire. USS Gonzalez fires two additional SM-6 Block 1 missiles at 15:05 hours and 14 seconds. One SM-6 targeting each of the two remaining Zolfaghar contacts that USS Cowpens has not assigned interceptors against. The Cooperative Engagement Capability Network ensures that the two ships are not firing redundant interceptors at the same targets. The picture is distributed, and the intercept assignments are deconflicted automatically by the Aegis software before the trigger is pulled. Simultaneously, the EA-18G Growler support that has been on station 70 nautical miles south of the formation since 1347 hours activates its GPS jamming suite. Two EA-18Gs from Electronic Attack Squadron 140, airborne on a pre-planned electronic warfare support patrol, cover the frequency bands used by the Zolfaghar's GPS/INS midcourse navigation system. The jamming is targeted. The GPS constellation signal is degraded across the threat axis in the specific frequency band that the AN/TPY2's signal intelligence receivers have characterized as consistent with the Zolfaghar's navigation receiver. Whether this degrades the missile's mid-course accuracy sufficiently to matter is a question the post-engagement analysis will answer. What it does with certainty is introduce navigation uncertainty into the mid-course phase. Uncertainty that may shift the terminal seeker's initial acquisition basket away from the USNS Cesar Chavez and toward a part of the formation's radar picture where the seeker must work harder to discriminate the target. At 15:06 hours and 44 seconds, the F/A-18E component of the response is launched. Two Super Hornets from the Combat Air Patrol, which has been on station 80 nautical miles south of the formation in anticipation of exactly this threat escalation, are vectored by the E-2D Hawkeye on a direct bearing toward the AN/TPY2 backtrack coordinates of the Zolfaghar launch site. Each aircraft carries two GBU-31 Joint Direct Attack munitions and two AGM-88E Advanced Anti-Radiation Guided Missiles. The GBU-31 JDAMs will address the TEL vehicles if they are still in the launch area. The AGM-88E ARMs will address the fire control radar and the Shahed 171 ground control station that has been supporting the reconnaissance drone, suppressing the IRGC's ability to assess the results of this strike and plan a follow-on attack. The Zolfaghar Contact 1 terminal seeker activates at 15:08 hours and 22 seconds, 43 kilometers from the formation. The seeker scans the radar picture in its field of view and begins discriminating between contacts. The formation presents three distinct radar cross-sections: USS Gonzalez at approximately 8,000 square meters equivalent, USS Cowpens at approximately 12,000 square meters, and USNS Cesar Chavez at approximately 6,500 square meters. The seeker's acquisition algorithm is designed to prioritize the largest radar cross-section within its field of view, which means it is homing on USS Cowpens, not the intended target. This is the GPS jamming's contribution. The mid-course navigation error has shifted the seeker's initial acquisition geometry by approximately 1.2 nautical miles from the planned approach bearing, placing USS Cowpens rather than USNS Cesar Chavez in the center of the seeker's field of view at first acquisition. This does not change the SM-6's intercept solution. The Aegis system has been tracking the Zolfaghar's actual trajectory, including the terminal seeker correction, through continuous updates from the AN/TPY2 and from USS Cowpens' own SPY-1B radar. which has now acquired the terminal phase contact at 31 nautical miles. The SM-6 assigned to Contact 1 is in its own terminal phase, closing on the Zolfaghar at combined velocities that leave 18 seconds before intercept. The SM-6's active seeker acquired the Zolfaghar at 15:08 hours and 31 seconds, 9 seconds after the Zolfaghar's seeker went active. Both weapons are in active terminal homing simultaneously. The SM-6 reaches the intercept point first. Contact 1. Rendered inoperable at 15:08 hours and 49 seconds. Altitude: 18,400 meters above the Persian Gulf surface. The SM-6's blast fragmentation warhead detonates within lethal radius of the Zolfaghar's reentry vehicle. The anti-ship ballistic missile, its terminal seeker still tracking USS Cowpens, ceases to function as a coherent weapon system. The debris field begins its descent from 18,400 meters. It will take over 3 minutes to reach the water surface and will impact well clear of any ship in the formation. Contact 2. Rendered inoperable at 15:09 hours and 3 seconds. This Zolfaghar's terminal seeker acquired USNS Cesar Chavez, the intended target, Ramor, at 38 kilometers range. A clean acquisition unaffected by the GPS jamming offset that shifted Contact 1's approach geometry. The SM-6 assigned to this contact received the updated trajectory solution through the Cooperative Engagement Network and closed to intercept at 21,200 meters altitude. The Zolfaghar was 9.4 nautical miles from USNS Cesar Chavez at the moment of intercept. It never reached the inner defensive perimeter. Contact 3. The third Zolfaghar executes a more aggressive terminal maneuver sequence than the previous two. A series of small course corrections that the AN/TPY2's track algorithm classifies as a pre-programmed evasion pattern rather than simple seeker homing. The pattern is not unexpected. The IRGC has incorporated these maneuver profiles into its more capable Zolfaghar variants based on observed intercept data from previous test engagements. The Aegis system processes the maneuver track and updates the SM-6's intercept solution through the mid-flight data link. Contact 3. Rendered inoperable at 15:09 hours and 28 seconds. Altitude 14,800 meters. Lower than the first two intercepts due to the maneuvering that extended the engagement timeline. Still 14.8 kilometers above the Gulf surface. Still nowhere near a ship. Contact 4 is the most complex engagement of the four. The fourth Zolfaghar is on the tightest approach geometry of the salvo. Its trajectory brings it toward the formation from a slightly different bearing than the first three, a geometry that the IRGC fire control planners apparently incorporated to complicate the intercept assignment by presenting a contact approaching from outside the primary SM-6 engagement envelope bearing. USS Gonzalez's SM-6, assigned to this contact, closes from a slightly off-axis intercept position. The miss distance is wider than the first three engagements. The SM-6's warhead detonates at the outer edge of its lethal fragmentation envelope, rather than the optimal detonation point. Contact 4, rendered inoperable at 15:09 hours and 44 seconds. Altitude 11,200 meters. The re-entry vehicle's structural integrity fails under fragmentation impact, and it loses coherent flight. It will not reach any ship in the formation. All four Zolfaghar anti-ship ballistic missiles rendered inoperable. Elapsed time from first launch to final intercept: 6 minutes and 13 seconds. USNS Cesar Chavez, the intended target, was never closer than 9.4 nautical miles to any incoming warhead. USS Cowpens and USS Gonzalez never activated their close-in defense layers. ESSM and Phalanx remained on standby throughout. The GPS jamming displaced one missile's acquisition geometry. The SM-6 Block 1 defeated all four, including the maneuvering variant. At 15:12 hours and 44 seconds, 9 minutes after the first Zolfaghar launch, the two FA-18Es arrive over the ANTPY2 backtrack coordinates of the launch site. The TEL vehicles have been repositioning since the missiles left their rails. Standard shoot and scoot doctrine. One vehicle is still on the original launch bearing. 340 meters from the confirmed launch point. Its thermal signature is clearly visible on the FA-18E's FLIR pod, a vehicle that did not complete its repositioning in the time available. GBU-31 JDAM at 15:12 hours and 58 seconds. The TEL vehicle is rendered inoperable. The second TEL has moved 820 meters and is now on a secondary road heading west. The E-2D Hawkeye tracks it on synthetic aperture radar. Second GBU-31 at 15:14 hours and 22 seconds. The second TEL is rendered inoperable on the road. The Shahed 171, reconnaissance drone that has been providing fire control updates to the IRGC ground station, is engaged by an AGM-88E anti-radiation guided missile at 15:16 hours and 3 seconds. The drone's satellite data link terminal, the emission source, the AGM-88E Hormozgan, generates a clear enough signal at the Growler's standoff position to support a launch solution. The Shahed 171, rendered inoperable at 15:16 hours and 41 seconds. The IRGC's eyes on the transit group go dark. In Tehran, the Zolfaghar program's operational record now includes 4 missiles fired at a U.S. Navy transit group in the Persian Gulf, 4 missiles rendered inoperable before reaching 9.4 nautical miles from the intended target, both TEL vehicles lost, and the reconnaissance drone that supported the engagement rendered inoperable by a weapon the IRGC did not anticipate being in the theater. The anti-ship ballistic missile concept, a weapon specifically engineered to threaten surface ships at ranges and speeds that conventional air defenses cannot address, has been tested at operational scale against a U.S. Navy formation with the SM-6 Block 1 as its primary interceptor, and the SM-6 went 4 for 4, including against the maneuvering variant. The USNS Cesar Chavez continues her transit toward the Strait of Hormuz at 16 knots. She will complete her replenishment rendezvous with Carrier Strike Group 9 in the Gulf of Oman tomorrow morning. The ordnance and spare parts in her cargo holds will reach the carrier on schedule. The strike group's sustained combat effectiveness will not be interrupted by the loss of a logistics asset. USS Cowpens and USS Gonzalez expended 4 SM-6 Block 1 missiles between them and will file ordnance replenishment requests at the next logistics coordination window. The E-2D Hawkeye that managed the complete picture, the AN/TPY-2 launch alert, the SM-6 intercept tracking, the TEL repositioning, the Shahed 171 engagement completes its station time and is relieved by the next crew rotation at 1600 hours. The anti-ship ballistic missile was designed to make the Persian Gulf dangerous for American surface ships. Today's engagement established the specific cost of that design assumption. 4 Zolfaghar missiles, 2 TEL vehicles, 1 reconnaissance drone, and 6 minutes of USS Cowpens combat watch log, against 0 damage to any American vessel and 0 interruption to the logistics mission that the IRGC considered worth 4 ballistic missiles to disrupt. The transit group passes through the Strait of Hormuz at 02:14 hours the following morning. The ordnance delivery proceeds on schedule. The Gulf is still open. The convoy kept moving. Bye for now.